What is up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Breathe and Air podcast, where everyday action meets extraordinary mindset. Today, we have the founder of Justintegrityy. He is a transformational coach that is certified in multiple things, such as hypnotherapy and neuro-linguistic programming. And he is a one-time trans-American cyclist. That is from coast to coast, ladies and gentlemen. Also has done his fair share of modeling and acting. Justin Rice, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Mason. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me on.
That's quite the runway right there. The list of things that you've been able to do in a short period of time is amazing. How have you been able to go along this journey and say, like, these are things I'm passionate about and I want to pursue them?
Yeah, I think it really started when my junior year of college. Like I said, my mom passed away, and that for me was a huge point of transition of just realizing how short life truly is, right? And that we should really squeeze the most out of it while we're here, and do the things that we care about, do the things that are aligned with our heart and our mind and our spirit and our body, and go after those things. Forget about the dollar signs, forget about all those other things, but once you align with that, I think that's the most important thing in living a fulfilled life. So, man, we live a short life. Let's go after it, man.
It is. It's very short. You speak of that, and I think that I've seen that you've talked about death before, and it seems like a topic that we, shy away from. We're scared to talk about it, but in retrospect, when we change our mindset to like death is inevitable, like it's going to happen to us, how can we use death and the fact that it is going to happen as something that lights a fire under us as opposed to making us scared?
Yeah. That's a great question, man. So what I tend to lean into is that, death is inevitable. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
So while we're here, in this limited time, what do you want to do? Go after those things now. It's going to happen. And I believe death is a beautiful transition. I think it's a great liberation. We are confined. I believe that we're spiritual beings having human lives. And when that period occurs, I have this feeling that it's a great liberation. The spirit leaving the body, going back into the realm, the eternal present moment, however you want to describe it, is a liberation, from all the fears that we have, all the densities that we have being here. Yeah. So it's like when we know that, it's, you don't really know it until it happens, but we can kind of listen to some spiritual guides and some spiritual teachers on these topics and kind of get some understandings. And there's people who have transitioned, right? Who have died and came back, and they describe their experience. So that just gets me fired up on just like, let's do what we can here in these human bodies, impact as many lives as possible and create the things that we want to create. There's no reason to put it off, do it now.
Absolutely.
It's the only moment we have.
Yeah, it really is. And it's a short time. I think that body, mind, and spirit, for those who have listened to this show, know how important that is to me. And to make sure that you're filling each of those cups throughout the day, I think that if you look back at your day and you say, physically, mentally, and spiritually, I, gave something to these three pillars. At the end of the day, you had a successful day. You're able to put your head on your pillow at night and be happy about that. You did some studying and are still studying with Dr. Joe Dispenza. And for those of the listeners that don't know, tell them a little bit about Dr. Joe and kind of his core beliefs. And that's
wow.
I know.
Yeah.
So I know that's like a very broad, he speaks about so much, but we could break it down into the power of the subconscious mind. I think that is a lot to do with Dr. Joe and what he speaks about. So a little bit about your journey with Dr. Joe up to this point and how it's affected you.
Yeah, man. So I came across Dr. Joe's work originally in his book, Supernatural, right? Becoming Supernatural. And after reading that book, I started to realize the power of our thoughts and our emotions on reality creation, on the law of attraction, right? These are laws, these are laws of physics, right? And one of the things that Joe talks about is a simple formula, very, very simple formula. clear intention plus an elevated emotion. Combining those two, reconditioning the body to a new mind, right? The body being the subconscious mind, reconditioning your body over time with new thoughts combined with new elevated emotions. You then are emitting a new electromagnetic field around your body, right? We're not taught this in common school, but we live in a vibrational world.
Mm.
Everything that we see is connected by molecules, atoms, ultimately down to the core, it's connected by energy. So when we begin changing our thoughts, changing our emotions, changing our electromagnetic state, we will then collapse in the quantum realm new experiences to us. They will come to us at that point. So this work, once you begin really soaking this knowledge in, and Joe talks about this often, is knowledge is the precursor to experience, right? So when you begin training your mind to understand this information, it then allows for you to experience it in his meditations, right?
Mm.
And the work really begins in the meditations. I do his meditations every single day, right in the morning and right before bed. Those are two times in the day that are very, very important for the subconscious mind.
Mm.
The reason being is that the brain waves are changing in those time periods, right? When you're going from delta brain waves when you're sleeping and you're waking up, your brain waves are in a prime optimal position to drop into meditation and to really work with the subconscious mind and change that.
Yeah.
Then the second time before bed, right? So now you're getting ready to, your brain waves are slowing down again, getting ready to go into a deep sleep. That's a great time to work with the subconscious mind and begin transforming your life. And when you do this work and you study his research on all the transformation studies, this is just science at this point. He's got it down with thousands of testimonials of people healing themselves of chronic disease, attracting money, whatever it is, right? Thousands of testimonials. This is a science, and it's not woo anymore. This is just real.
Right.
And it's man, the work is powerful.
It is. And I
Yeah.
think,
So, and I'm getting ready. Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah. I was saying, I think that's where the woo, like you said, that is where some people get lost. Like, I can't see myself sitting there. They think of meditation as cross-legged with, your hands out and just humming, right? But it's totally different. It is something that you can feel the difference when you start to practice and utilize. And it's funny because Dr. Joe's, one of his easy 15-minute, and it's like a precursor intro on YouTube or something. That was one of the first ones that I really got into, where I was like starting to experience total relaxation and like in a meditative state. And it was through listening to the guided. I can now through practice tap into it in other ways. But when I first started, I think that is a great way to start it. And it's funny because it was actually one of his spoken ones. So
Yeah. Just that's what I encourage people to do. Right. I have pretty much all of his meditations now downloaded on my phone, but he has hour-long meditations, for the more advanced practices. But I recommend anybody that's new to this work, start with a 15-minute meditation in the morning. Just get that down and begin feeling those relaxation sensations that you're talking about, and really dropping in to the autonomic nervous system, the subconscious mind, and allow yourself to experience that. Because when you do, it will just give you more reassurance to go ahead and do it again and do it again and do it again. And before you know it, things are changing in your outer reality, opportunities are coming, and your whole life is transformed,
yeah,
so absolutely.
it really is a powerful thing. You spoke on subconscious mind, and this is something that's preached on a lot. We hear this subconscious mind, but I feel like a lot of people don't really understand what the subconscious mind is and how to tap into it, and how the subconscious mind changes everything else around us when we're able to fully be connected with it. So tell me a little bit about your experience with that. What's the power of the subconscious mind, and how do we rewire these thoughts and these patterns that we get into?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. So Dr. Joe Dispenza, the way he puts it, and the way I've been taught through my certifications, is that the subconscious mind really lies in the body. So we can have conscious positive thoughts, but if subconsciously our body is trapped in fear, we're stuck in the lower three energy centers, we're stuck in guilt, shame, all these emotions that are tied to fear, nothing will change. You could think as positively as you want, but if your emotional body and your subconscious mind is not changing in any way, you're kind of going against the wind. So the way I would describe the subconscious mind is subconscious, unconscious. They're kind of used synonymously. They're slightly different. It's different in a way, and I'm still kind of learning the differences between unconscious and subconscious. But from my understanding, there is a little bit of a difference between the two. But like what I was going back to there is just, it's in the body. It's in the body. So we have to work with the body as a mechanism of consciousness to transform. So that's another thing that Joe incorporates in his meditation. Some of the more advanced meditations is breath work, right? So, breathe in air, right? That's the name of the podcast, right? Breathing is such a transformational process with releasing fears and really changing the subconscious mind. So one of the things that Joe teaches is he talks about the energy centers, right? We have 7 energy centers, also known as the chakras, right? But he doesn't use that term because chakras tend to throw people off a little bit. But when you look at the lower 3 energy centers, right, these areas are the areas of survival. So when we begin working with breath and drawing that breath up from those energy centers, this is kind of like Kundalini breath work. We begin drawing that breath up from those centers and bringing that up through the spine, right, up into the brain, up into the pineal gland. You're freeing energy. You're freeing energy from those survival centers, allowing yourself to create, more energy to create something new in your life. That's kind of how I describe it.
Yeah, no, it's that was very well done. I mean, it really is a transformational thing, and I think that the basis of meditation, how to tap into these things, begins with breath work. I think that our physical bodies hold back so much. I was reading, and this isn't verbatim, but basically along the lines of this very successful marketer, and he said, I would go through all these ideas, these creative ideas in the morning, and I would pay attention which thing that I saw or that I read that made me have a physical reaction, like the emotional connection with the physical reaction to our body, right? And I think that mind body connection is something that is so strong and powerful. And it could go even down to as simple as, what we put in our bodies in terms of the diet and how much water we're drinking and all of these things, right? But that mind body connection is so powerful. And Dr. Joe even talks about like crafting your future, right? Crafting your future with these techniques and thoughts. For someone who's just starting off, you mentioned the guided meditations, but is there anything that helped you in your journey at an early stage?
Yeah, well, the first thing that really kind of set this off for me, this whole journey, was just going into a group meditation. I think there's a real power in being in a group setting with people who are all increasing their energy in some way. So I was invited. This is probably back in 2016. At the time, I was going through my own bouts of depression, and I was just very lost in some ways, and I was searching for more. And I started hearing about meditation. Being that I was in the health space, I was an exercise science major with nutrition as a minor at that time, and I started hearing about meditation and research studies, and other health professionals were talking about the importance of meditation. And I was invited to a Heartfulness Way meditation. This is a meditation practice that stems from Babaji. Babaji is one of the great spiritual teachers, and a lot of his teachings kind of funnel down into a lot of the work that we see today. And the Heartfulness Way, when I went to this gentleman's basement, actually, he was hosting a group meditation, Indian gentleman, his name was Tanuj, beautiful soul. And there's 5 or 6 of us, and everybody was older. I was the only young person there, so I didn't really know what to expect, but he guided us very simply, to focus on our toes, relax your toes, Focus on your shins and your calves. Relax your calves and your shins, going all the way through the body and helping us relax the body. And an hour went by and came out of that meditation having no idea where I went, no idea where time was, no idea that I was a body, in space. And it was really like my first spiritual awakening. I was like, what, I'm confused, what's happening here? Like I didn't feel like I was myself, my identity, my ego, and that kind of started things off. So I would encourage people, get with a group and practice.
Yeah.
Obviously, right now we can't really do that, so maybe that was bad advice. But
Even-
try to try to get with a group of people, get some headphones in, put something around your eyes to reduce any sensory stimulation, and just focus on your breath, like you were saying, Mason. Focus on the breath and allow that to help you relax.
Yeah. And you've had a plethora of things that you've done in this journey and this career path that you've had to finding, Dr. Joe and his teachings and all of these other things. So tell me a little bit about how this started. Like, tell me a little bit about your journey and your background growing up.
Yeah, man. So I grew up as an athlete. Growing up, I grew up with a single mother. My mom was working 3 jobs. She was a badass woman, and we had a bunch of animals around the house. We had 11 pets at one point. So I
Wow.
grew up in a very, very loving household. And yeah, like I said, I grew up playing sports. So basketball, soccer, football, you name it. My mom kind of just wanted me to get involved in that route, and that's kind of what led me into the exercise science field. As becoming a passion. So in 8th grade, I really kind of had my mind set on going into physical therapy. So physical therapy, I started shadowing people in 8th grade, and local physical therapists, kind of trying to just soak up as much knowledge, get the shadowing hours to
Mhm.
prepare for physical therapy school. Then going into high school, still had my mindset on physical therapy. Ended up going to Rutgers University, studying exercise science and nutrition, kinesiology essentially. And during that time, I athletic trained for the Big Ten football team for Rutgers University. It's where I went to school, all that kind of stuff. And that's that's what kind of led me into the body transformation, the physical transformation. I went into personal training, did all that kind of stuff. But then I started realizing there's more to this, right? I started seeing some of my clients, they were transforming for the time that I was there, but long-term transformation wasn't occurring. And I started noticing the power of the mind in all of this, the subconscious mind in long-term transformation, and the impact of our identity on what we create. So that led me down into, law of attraction books, Wayne Dyer stuff, all this kind of spiritual woo-woo stuff, but then eventually coming across supernatural. And then after I read that book, really opened my mind to the nature of reality. Then I went ahead and took Dr. Joe's progressive and intensive workshop. I highly recommend anybody who's listening, go take those workshops. They're pretty cheap. It's like $299, not cheap, but the information, once you learn it, you're basically getting the formula to create anything in your life. So the value of that is like, come on. So like,
Yeah.
I would say, if you're new to Joe's work, take the progressive and intensive workshop. It's just a bunch of his lectures. Take those, learn the information, and then start doing the meditations.
Yeah. You mentioned your mom and being a single mother, and you have biked across America. You've went from coast to coast with a cause and raising money along the way for single mothers. So tell me a little bit about that journey. I mean, going across the United States on a bike, that's insane.
Yeah, man. So I was one of my good friends that I grew up with, who knew my mom very close. His name's Isaac Sullivan. He was who I biked across America with, and we were in Italy at the time, and he told me that he was thinking about it. He met a friend in Colorado, I think, that told him that he biked across America, and he was fired up about it. He's like, "Yo, dude, I'm thinking about biking across America, man. Like, you want to join? I'm thinking about raising some money for veterans." He was an Army veteran. He was in the Army for 6 years. And I was like, "Dude, I'm down, man. Let's do it, man." So I started getting the GoFundMe set up. there was a month or two in between us, after that initial conversation where I started to rethink things. I was like, you know, I don't know, man, because my buddy Isaac, he's kind of like David Goggins, like he's got like that mentality.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this, man. And I got a bike and I started leaning into it, but I noticed the fear coming up. And this is for the listeners. I became aware of the fear. I became aware of my mind saying, oh, these are reasons not to do it, right? You will always find reasons to validate fear or creation. You'll find reasons for it. So I started having these thoughts come up in my head. You're not in shape for this. You haven't been, really prepping for this. But I was like, you know what? I'm deep into Joe's work. I believe in the power of the mind. I believe in the subconscious mind and healing the body. I believe that I can do this, if I apply this work. So I kept leaning into it. Came down, a month or two before we were getting ready to depart. I ended up booking the flight. My buddy was flying from Florida to Oregon. I was flying from San Diego to Oregon. That's where we were starting at. And man, that's where the trip started. And dude, we got off. So my good friend picked us up from the Oregon airport. We had our bikes. We shipped our bikes on the flight. And man, the first day, it's raining on us. We're going uphill incline right from the get-go. And I'm destroyed. I'm destroyed. Like my legs are destroyed. I'm like, in the first day, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make this. Like, without a doubt in my mind, I'm like, I don't know. 30 minutes in, Isaac gets a flat tire. We're pulled off to the side. Yeah, 30 minutes in, man. Flat tire. It's raining on us. And man, I'm looking at Isaac and I'm like, man, dude, we got at least 60 days to go. At least 60 days. We were on pace to do about 60 miles a day. So if we did 60 miles a day, that puts you about 60 days to bike from the West Coast to the East Coast. And man, so Isaac fixed his tire up. We get to the top of this hill and we get to this overpass, and we're looking over this thing, and I'm cramping up. My legs are cramped up. I'm destroyed. And Isaac just keeps looking at me. He's like, man, let's just keep going, man. Keep going. Like, we're going to get through this. I'm telling you, like, and this is accountability. Having somebody on your team to push you is sometimes, like, you sometimes need that.
Yeah.
He kept looking me in my eyes. Was like, dude, we got this, man. Like, you started it. Let's finish this thing out. And we just kept going, man. And let me tell you, we did this all during the beginning of COVID, or beginning of, the virus, whatever you want to call this thing. We started in the beginning of this, met some amazing people that helped us out along the way, giving us water bottles, cheering us on, giving us money for the donations. And it really just brought so much, love in my heart, just to realize, the love that people have for one another. And that's a little bit about it, man. There's so many stories I could talk about, but
Sure.
it was a journey. But one of the things that I'll say is I was practicing Joe's work all throughout it. I was, in the morning focusing on healing my body. How can I put that clear intention out there, elevated emotion of my legs healing so I can get through this day. And, we got there.
Yeah. It is
Yeah.
incredible, the stories and testimonials that people that are listening will have to go back and look at some of these hard, like this is evidence-based. This is science, that people who were sick, who did have physical ailments, were healed through this work. So when you say, like, I was doing the work to try and, like, heal my body, people be like, what does he mean by this? Right. But, like, there are real testimonials on how this works. It's like the sugar pill, right? Like, people who have anxiety, and then, your test subjects get the sugar pill versus Xanax or whatever, and the sugar pills feel better, right? It's the power of the mind thing that's insane. But I'm interested. We won't stay on this too long, but where, like, were you staying on the trout? Like, where were you staying? Tents, like,
Yeah. So in the beginning, what we had packed up, we had a hammock, and we had a one person tent. We each had our own tent, very small tent. On these touring bike rides, you want to keep your bike as light as possible. And we learned that very quick.
Yeah.
In the beginning, we had way too much stuff on our bike. We probably had close to 20 to 30 pounds on our bike. It's probably closer to 20 pounds in
Yeah.
total. So initially, in the first week or so, we were kind of doing hotels because we were banged up. We were really banged up. And that first week, it was a mix of hotels and a mix of camping outside. And we were really just finding local parks and just pitching the tent, pitching the hammock, and just trying to get as comfy as possible
That's
and keep it moving. But then as we kept moving forward, it became less and less hotels. And basically all throughout the week, every single weekday, Monday through Saturday, we were outside. And eventually we sent our tents back because the tents were one of the heaviest things that we had. So we sent the tents back, but we just had the hammock. So we would string up on the trees. We would pitch a tarp over top so we weren't getting rained or anything like that. And then every Sunday we would get a hotel or a motel just to kind of, relax, recover, shower, clean our clothes up, do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. What are you eating during this process?
Ah, man. You and I are very aligned on nutritional philosophies. I looked at some of you, like, I understand that you understand nutrition.
Right.
So that was a challenge for me because I understand nutrition, eating real foods, right? Coming from nature. And that was something that was very tough, especially in those areas in like Idaho, Wyoming, where there were no stores, for miles on end. And we were going to convenience stores a lot of the times, picking up Cliff Bars, picking up pretty much anything to sustain, and get some calories in. And I'm not, obviously calories, I don't believe calories are I believe in nutritional density, right? I think you understand. And man, we were really just doing whatever we could to get food in. And I knew at that time that I wasn't eating the foods that were great for my body, but that's all you could do. I just
It's
and I was just banking on using the mind, using the subconscious mind to heal, and just kept going with that.
it's incredible. It's
Um,
incredible. And I mean, did it take you 60 days? Was it a full 60?
it ended up being 71 days. We could have finished in 60, but at the end we ended up basically shouting out, hey, this is the date when we're going to end, because we had a bunch of people that were going to meet at the end. So we basically had that date set. So once we got to Georgia area, we kind of took a couple days off. We were just kind of enjoying it at that point. But
Yeah.
yeah, it could have been 60, man. We met some inspiring people, man. We met a couple that were probably in their 50s, and they did the Bike Across America 4 years ago, they said. So they must have been 45 years old when they did it. Took them 85 days. 54 out of the 85 days, it rained on them, they told us. And that was when we were in Colorado. We met these people at the top of one of the largest passes that we went up. It was a 10,000 foot Cameron Pass in Colorado. That's where we went up. And we met this couple, and they told us that it rained on more than half the days. And we had beautiful weather the entire time. So once they told us that, I was like, we're good. We're good from here. We're halfway done. Let's keep it going. And
That's
then smooth
that.
sailing from there.
What was your biggest takeaway from that?
Biggest takeaway. Man, I really think it goes back to the power of the mind, man. It was really it was a pivotal moment for me, because there were a lot of points where I was really telling myself internally that I'm not going to make it, and I'm going to have to tell my buddy Isaac that he's going to have to go alone, because I don't think it'll be able to make do that. Because there were some days, man. There were some days where I was going to sleep at night and my quads were like just cramping, like just from the sheer like pounding on the bike.
Yeah.
So really, I would go back to that for the listeners. Looking at Joe Dispenza's work, the power of the mind and healing and transformation is just so powerful. And when we learn this stuff, man, it's like the limits are endless.
Yeah. We'll switch the script on you here a little bit. I mean, that story is incredible, incredible. But what's going on right now in today's financial world is insane, right? We're getting another stimulus check, another trillion something dollars, pumped into our system. And USD seems to be deflating even more, right? And then you got big companies such as you see MicroStrategy has totally put all of their assets into Bitcoin. They're like,
Mhm.
everything, we're all in. And then you have people like recently Tesla, $1.5 billion worth into Bitcoin. So we're seeing a lot of these large Fortune 500 corporations getting into this type of, cryptocurrency realm as well. And I see that something that you've been studying and are passionate about as well. So for people that are listening and are like, what is Bitcoin? What is crypto? What's blockchain technology? Like, what is it? Could you explain kind of the basis for what cryptocurrency is?
Yeah, yeah. There's so much to go into with this that I'm still learning on a daily basis. I spend quite a bit of time learning about this every day now because it's just such a phenomenal technology. But what I'll say is that it is a technology, right? So Bitcoin is a technology. It's a decentralized technology. So if you can essentially think of networks of computers that are solving very tough mathematical equations that generates a block on a blockchain, right? And this is the basis of all cryptocurrencies is the blockchain technology. And this technology is really revolutionary. This changes everything because it's a very secure system. And if you could think about blockchain as essentially blocks, right, where in order for another block to be added to the chain, there needs to be proof of stake. I'm pretty sure that's the name of it, proof of stake. And essentially, it is that before this block can go on, it essentially needs to prove that the block before it is secure.
Right.
So this makes a very, very secure network across the board for transactions, for peer-to-peer transactions, and it's very fast, right? So it solves an issue that we've seen with our financial system for forever, right? Where, we have dollars in a bank account and it takes 3 to 5 business days for it to go from here to there,
Right.
right? And this technology is solving a lot of those issues. And Bitcoin is more so you can kind of, there's Bitcoin, there's capital Bitcoin, and then there's lowercase Bitcoin, right? So the Bitcoin that we're seeing right now is the lowercase Bitcoin, from my understanding, is that it's the digital gold, right? There's a scarce supply of it, right? There's 21 million in supply, and there will never be more generated. And this supply that's generated by these computers halves. So essentially, the number that are generated decreases over time. So the supply naturally decreases. So if the demand, this is just, economics 101, right? Is when the supply decreases and the demand increases, we're going to see the price go up. And that's what we're witnessing right now. We're seeing large corporations go into this saying, we believe this is a store of value. And that is why we're seeing Bitcoin go up, skyrocketing right now.
Right. And I think that was said greatly. I think that, people just have to look at it. It seems like something that would go away or could go away, and who knows, it may. But with what's happening right now, and like you said, the scarcity of it, and looking at it almost as like an asset as opposed to something that is going to totally get rid of USD, right?
Yeah.
Looking at it as like, this is something that I'm investing in, that is a scarcity, that is an asset in that side of things. So I just think it's extremely interesting, and the way that I see it continue to go. I mean, Tesla even saying that they're going to accept it as payments. So you may start seeing some integration with Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies into our society, even as payments for these things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There so much exciting things are happening right now. But yeah, what I would say is like we are witnessing right now with the Federal Reserve, right, getting ready to print another $1.9 trillion in dollars, right? So now we're seeing the total opposite, right, where the supply is just going anywhere because they're able to just click a couple digits in the computer, click control print, and boom, new $1.9 trillion are put into the economy, and there's nothing pegging it, right? So back when Nixon, this all goes into financial education, but Nixon removed the gold from the dollar, right? And that was a huge transition in the value of the dollar decreasing. So now corporations, institutions are seeing, okay, if we hold cash, it is decreasing with inflation by almost like 15%.
Yeah.
So your cash just sitting there is just evaporating. Assets are increasing in value, all real estate, all these things are increasing in value. So corporations are realizing we got to get our capital, our cash sheet, our balance sheets into something that's going to hedge this deflation or this inflation.
Inflation. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's true, right? If you're leaving cash sitting there, it is deflating technically.
Yeah.
And the inflation over time, you want your money to be working for you, not you technically working for your money. That's always the way to
Absolutely.
think about it. And I think that this new technology is something people should do their research on. You've obviously done it, and a lot of people around me are super excited about it. And I am too, because I think it is revolutionary. I think this whole year, even 2020, I mean, look at all the things that we'll look back 20 years from now, and this time will be in the history books. I think that's an interesting way to think of it. It's like there's so much revolutionary things going on right now in this time, and it is
Yeah.
crazy. It's exciting though. You have to seize the moment. So
Exactly.
up off of these circumstances that we're in. And being able to see that as a perspective is once again goes back to that. Like, how are you going to use this time to your advantage versus wallowing in self-pity? Like it's an interesting way to look at things.
Absolutely. And it really all goes back to what we talked about in the beginning. It really starts with changing the subconscious mind, changing the mind to see opportunity, right? If you are in abundance, if you are really feeling that vibrational state of being, you are generating abundance, you will now see opportunities in this time rather than seeing scarcity. So
Mm,
that's where I always tell people, I get a lot of people reach down the DMs like, oh, how do I buy this or how do I invest? What I usually go back to is don't think about those things yet. Focus on changing from within. Focus on feeling abundance. Focus on being happy. Focus on feeling like you're already wealthy, feeling like you're rich. All of those things are way, way, way more important than going ahead and getting the knowledge.
yeah.
You know what I mean? You got to start there, because if you start with the knowledge, with the mind part of it, but your subconscious mind is fearful of going into new opportunity or seizing new opportunity, you will sabotage it. You will not seize the moment. You will not seize the opportunity. So it starts with going within first.
Mm. It's powerful. It's very powerful. You you started a company about 5 years ago, I think it was that you said, called
Yeah.
Justintegrity.
Yeah.
So tell me, as an entrepreneur, what has your path been with that, and kind of what is the future of Justintegrity?
Yeah. This is something that I'll share with all the listeners is, and Mason, before we my battery's at 9% here. Just so you know here. But
Yeah.
um yeah, so Just Integrity originally started with a vision. Really, so at the time I was kind of trying to figure out how I want to position myself as a coach. I was studying Gary Vee at the time. I was like, all right, do I personal brand it, or do I, create a brand that incorporates myself into it? How do I do this? And I was kind of thinking about names, and I didn't really have anything that came up. And literally in the middle of the night, I woke up, Just Integrity, Just Integrity. So I wrote it down real quick, and I was like, wow, this has my name in it, but it's a like just it's bigger than my name, but it's Just Integrity. Integrity has such a the definition of it is really wholeness, right? Living in an integral life is being in wholeness. And that's something, that we're all achieving, mind, body, spirit is really trying to achieve wholeness in your life. And I kind of started off with that, and I was like, I want to create a t-shirt athletic brand, around that, and inspiring people with mind, body, spirit. And I was working with two partners at the time, and they ended up having their own things go on where they had to go off to college, and they're like, hey, Justin, man, we see the vision, but we can't really, work with you. We got too much stuff going on. And I was like, man, I was like, all right, guess I'm going to take this on my own. So I kind of kept pursuing it. Had another opportunity with a good friend that I grew up with who was in the cannabis industry. And this was 2 years ago. And he was talking to me about CBD, and I started reading the literature on it, reading the research behind CBD, cannabidiol, on how we have an endocannabinoid system within our body that doesn't really get tapped into, and that there's ways that these molecules, CBD,
Yep.
CBG, all these different cannabinoids are able to connect with the system and bring us back to homeostasis. So that's kind of where the brand is now, is with CBD. And man, what I'm trying to do with it, very similar to you, mind, body, spirit. There's going to be an educational platform talking about education that we don't learn in school. It's kind of similar to what you're doing.
Yeah.
Body, stuff, nutrition, supplementation, all that kind of stuff. And then spirit, really trying to bring community and try to create a movement with this.
That's so important. I love that. And I love that idea. I'm really excited to see where it goes with that. And the entrepreneurial pursuits are always fluctuating, just as the market and everything else in life, right? But you're sticking with it, just like you did with the bike. And that's the message that I want to convey to everyone listening. Like, you have to stick with these things that you're passionate about. Just because you find a passion or a purpose does not mean that it's going to be a walk in the park. Oftentimes you find it and then it kicks you in the teeth, and then it kicks you in the teeth again and again, right? But I think
that's the thing, right? Don't failure. It's never really a thing until you actually say, I'm done with it. Right. So you can have, we know this, right? These are principles of very successful people, is that they failed numerous times. They tried and tried, went up to bat, kept swinging. And then you get up to bat that one time and you just make connection with it. And that's where I feel at right now, especially with this Joe Dispenza work. I feel very aligned with Justintegrityy. I told you, I just signed a big contract with a manufacturer that I'm working with in Georgia. And now's the time. I have people reaching out about the products, and I'm ready to go with it. And now it's go time. So for all the people out there, like, persistence is a quality of most successful people. So adopt that. When you are faced with adversity, when you're faced with failure in the beginning, just know that it's not the end. It's not the end. This is just the beginning.
So powerful. I know you're limited on time here, but before you leave, tell everyone where they can find you on social media, where they can find Justintegrityy, if they're interested in your coaching services, all those things.
Absolutely. So you can find me thejustinrice.com. You can basically find all my social media links there. Instagram, I'm pretty active on that. So the Justin Rice with 2 E's on that. And then Justintegrityy, that is going to most likely be launching probably by April, May. That's just going to be www.justintegrityy.com, and you'll be able to see all the resources on there, CBD supplements, online academy, all that stuff will be on there. And you guys can always feel free to DM me, connect with me. Pretty open. I love chatting with people.
Beautiful. Justin, before you leave, what is your definition of success?
My definition of success is you being aligned with what you want to create. So putting the intention out there and actually making it manifest in your reality. So it's really ultimately up to you on what success is, right? So if your ideal success is, being ultra wealthy, or your ideal success is running a community center, a nonprofit, whatever that is, once you accomplish it and make it manifest, I say that's success. Doing what you put out there with your mind and making it happen.
Beautiful. Well said. Thank you, Justin, so much for coming on the show, man. It's been incredible. And I'm excited to see your journey with Justintegrityy and just you and your coaching. And I believe in you and what you're doing. So, man, thank you so much for spending your time and coming on the show.
Absolutely, Mason, man. Keep up the great work. It's important work that you're doing, and absolutely looking forward to podcasts as well. I'd love to have you on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to come on also, and we'll definitely make that happen. So thank you for your time. And guys, thank you for listening to another episode of the Breathe and Air podcast, where everyday action meets extraordinary mindset.
Boom.